Greetings, everyone. This is Instructor Williams. This week's module is about the web. The web is a tool that has grown vastly since my years of experience in the IT field. It has become a commonplace tool that we communicate on, we do research on. It has expanded the capabilities of being able to work with people that are halfway around the world um, in almost a seamless environment. Today, in particular, we're going to be talking about web pages. Um, there's a lot you're going to go over, including a research um, lesson in this class using the web, but we're going to dive a little bit into the components of a web page. Here you see header, navigation bar, body, sidebar, and footer. And we're also going to talk about what constitutes a secure web page versus an unsecure web page. Um, this involves things such as a digital certificate um, and going to a web page that uses Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Believe it or not, you actually have a unsecure version of this, which is simply HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And then finally, the way that it secures the web page is that it uses some form of encryption. And I'm going to point and show those things out to you. That said, we're going to go to our VM. And if you remember, we had our VM installed the last lesson. And one thing that I actually said to you all is that the VM is a great place, a great tool to use because you can actually hook it up to the internet or you can isolate it. Isolating the VM is also known as sandboxing the VM. This means that the VM has no communication with the outside world or it has no communication with your host. So we're going to open the VirtualBox Manager for this next part. Um, let's pause this VM actually first. Again, pausing just means that we're going to release some of those resources that we have tied up with the VM. And we're going to take a look here at um, details for our Windows 10 VM. So as you see, there's a lot of settings, and you'll recognize this as general computer settings from system to display to storage. But where we're going to go is to the network setting. Now, there are a numerous amount of network settings, but this is a beginner class, so we're not going to go through all those. So we're going to talk about three different ones that are located on here, which is NAT, internal network, and not attached. Now, NAT is network address translation. Whenever to kind of keep this simple, whenever your computer goes out on the internet, it uses an IP address, and we'll cover those also in this class. But it uses its personal IP address that's translated or changed to one by your service provider. Now, with NAT actually highlighted, we can give our VM actual internet access. Yes, that's right. We can give it internet access. What it'll do is it'll use your network card or adapter that's in your computer, go through there, and then go out to the web. Another setting is internal network. Now, the internal network means that you set up maybe a couple of VMs. Like if you notice, I actually have another VM on here, and that the computers can only talk to each other within the VM. There's no communication with your host. There's no communication to the outside network. And then the final setting, if you want to completely isolate your VM so that it has no connection to anything, is just simply not attached. That means there is no network card on the VM. Okay? So this is good for sandboxing, as I was stating earlier. So we're going to change it to network address translation. We're going to hit OK. We're going to minimize this, and we're going to start to unpause our VM. So one of the first things I do, like we left off with just the installation, the last video, but like I told you, you can actually install programs on the VM. So we're gonna open up Microsoft Edge. I'm not a fan of Edge, so I'm going to put well, another browser and a couple programs on here. So what I'm doing is just go through this generic Microsoft information, confirm and start browsing, and I'm going to go to a web page called Nonite. So we have Nonite here. It's going to be programmed. And what this does is Nonite has the ability to install several programs in one install package for you. And I do like the fact that the programs have all been scanned for malware and viruses, and they should be malware and virus free. I've trusted Nonite for years. So, what programs I'm going to put on here? Like I told you, I'm going to put another web browser, Chrome, and I'm going to put Firefox on here. These are not ones that you have to do, but there are a couple of different programs I like to have on my VM. Um, let's maximize this so we can see it better. Um, I do also like, let's see if I can find it on here. Oh, here it is. LibreOffice. This is an open source program that's similar to Microsoft Office. So I'm going to put that on here. And then I believe that's all I'm going to put on here. I might put Notepad++ if I can find it. There it is. Notepad++. Again, this is not for this particular video, but I'm planning on using that for a future video. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. So like I said, this Nonite is a great tool for using to install multiple programs, and it's free to use for personal use. So I'm going to get my Nonite down here, and it should start downloading here in a little bit. It's finished downloading. So I'm going to open the file, and it's preparing for installation. The good thing about Nonite, and we're going to give it yes for permissions. The good thing about Nonite is that these programs install back to back to back without having to go through a bunch of setup. Entering your name, clicking yes here, I agree to this terms, and all that so forth. We can simply just hit yes for the install, and all this will install on our VM. Now, while that's installing, I'll talk a little bit about VM use in IT. If you are majoring in, I don't know if everybody taking this class is an IT major, but if you are majoring in IT, you should get used to working with virtual machines. Virtual machines serve several purposes. Um, one of the main purpose one main purpose is for checking updates. As we know, Microsoft releases update after update after update. Um, Sometimes these updates can interfere with programs that we have installed in our production machines. And just make a note, it is installing Chrome now. If you notice, it just went straight to that. Um, but as I was saying, it will. So some of these updates can interfere with our production software that we have on our production machines. So one practice that you'll commonly see is that you'll see a VM that has production software, production being whatever industry you're in, installed on it. And instead of doing direct installs to the production machine, we'll do updates on the VM that has that same software. Then once we do the update there, we can see if there's any glitches, any errors, any kind of conflicts that are happening with um, our Windows machine. So if everything is good and there's no issues, we can go ahead and put that on our production machine. Or we could turn around and address whatever issues that we have through the use of patches and hot fixes, and then turn around and install that. Another use that you'll see is for malicious software or potentially malicious software. I could take my VM, I can give it internet access as we did earlier. I can download that software and then I can isolate it, meaning make it so that it's not attached as we were looking at in the network setting that's on here. So in essence, I'm sandboxing it after I download that software. Then I can turn around and I can test that software. Um, I can run malware scans on it. I can test it. I can take a look at the services that are running to see if there's any type of, you know, potentially suspicious surfaces that it's trying to reach out to that it shouldn't reach out to. And then I can get the all clear for this software. Then after that, if everything is good, I can turn around and put it on my production machine. So these are just a few uses. Another one is for legacy. You'll find in some organizations where you work, they have some software that has to run on, let's say, Microsoft XP, and there's no way to update it because it's some type of critical infrastructure device. Well, you can take a VM and you could run Microsoft XP on it or any version of Windows for that matter, and you can have those programs that you need running that are legacy programs running on that VM. So again, there are multiple uses. These are just a few of for a VM. So what I'm going to do now while this is finally installing LibreOffice is I'm going to pause and we'll come back after everything has been installed. Hey everyone, we're back. As you can see, Nine hasn't finished installing those programs. So we're going to turn around and we're going to close this out. We're going to minimize this window, and as you can see, we have new programs installed. Now, at this point, I suggest making a snapshot um, of your VM. So I'm going to cancel that out. I had that open. Let's pause this for a second. Or actually, we can go up here and we can take a snapshot from here. So let's take a snapshot. We'll call it snapshot. I'm going to call this after program install or programs install, rather. And we can actually, in the snapshot description, so that we know exactly what's going on, we can put what programs were installed. We'll put Firefox and Chrome, Notepad++. Oops, we'll do that. And finally, LibreOffice. Okay, so all those are on here, and we'll hit OK, and it's going to take the snapshot. Now, we don't want to actually mess with anything while it's doing the snapshot because that could corrupt the file, and we don't want to corrupt that image. So just a little patience here. It doesn't really take that long. We're already at 50% right now. So, but like I told you, the thing about snapshots that are great is that you can go back to a previous snapshot um, of any kind if you want to, and I'll go over that in a lesson as well. But there's quite a lot of material that we cover in this video, so I'll save that for a future video on how we can go back and utilize a previously done snapshot. So everything's looking good here. I'm going to open Chrome. So, haha, Chrome. I'm not going to sign in. I'm not worried about making it my default browser, but we are going to try something here. Um, Remember I told you can't personalize the VM? I think I said that last video. Yeah, if you right click and try to personalize it, well, and it's this VM because we're using unregistered copy of an unactivated, let me get the terminology right, version of Windows. So as you can see, you need to activate Windows before you can personalize it. But I think, I'm not 100% sure, that I may have a workaround for that. I'm going to put in Red Panda. I love Red Pandas. And we're going to look that up. And here's some pictures of Red Pandas. I'm going to put photos because I want to see more. Right? So I'm gonna stay signed out. So one of my favorite animals, actually, um, especially this one. That's cute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download. I'm gonna open a new tab first. Yep, that's a JPEG. I'm going to save photo as Red Panda, and I'm gonna save it to my pictures. Let that download. It's done. So then I'm going to open that picture of the red panda, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to put set as desktop background. And it looks like it worked. So now I have a picture of a red panda for my background. Now, what's the purpose of this? The purpose is, remember in the other lesson, I'm going to minimize that. I tell you can get confusing working on a VM, especially if it's Windows on Windows. But I can instantly see this red panda and know, well, I am in my VM. So that's where I'm going to set that as. Now you could change your background on your host machine, but I tend to like the Windows logo just sitting there. So I'm gonna leave that the way it is. And so now you have a workaround on how you can set a background for your VM. But let's get to what we now that we've done all of this housekeeping. Let's get to what we are here to talk about today, um, and that is web pages. So we think web pages are really simple. We just type in URL. Um, in this case, we're going to go to Central Georgia's website. Type in the URL. Well, in this case, we can type it in. We search for it, and then we're going to click on it. And voila, we are at that web page. Um, but there's a lot going on in the background and behind the scenes if you actually were to take some time to look at it. Now, if you remember, one of the things we talked about was digital certificates, security, and hypertext transfer protocol. So if you look up here, you don't see HTTP or anything like that. But if I actually click on the address bar, you'll notice that this has HTTPS, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, meaning that the connection between my um, computer and the web server that's hosting this website are communicating securely with each other. Now, how can we double check that and make sure? Well, there are actually some options that are up here. This lock tells us that, but we can click on it and we can see some more information. We can show connection details. So we can see that um, security is being provided by Central Georgia Tech EDU, and that there is a certificate that's valid. Can we actually see the certificate? We actually can. We can click on it, and this is the certificate that it's talking about within your lesson. So certificates have numerous information, um, and that's beyond the scope of this um, class and this lesson. But I just wanted to point out to you that you actually can see the certificate. So it has a bunch of different information. One of the encryptions it's using is SHA-256, um, which you can see here. Now we can take a look at details here, and it tells us the type of certificate. It also tells us the version of the certificate, the serial number of the certificate. It has a signature. It tells us even the signature here. Remember we talked about the encryption? What do you see here? SHA-256 with RSA encryption. Um, Also, there's just so many numerous fields, and you're not going to really get into that in this class. Um, but when you start talking about PKIs, which is public key infrastructure, that's where this will definitely come into play. So I'm not going to get deep into that. Like I said, that's beyond the scope of this class. I just wanted to show you that there where the certificate is and what it looks like. Now we can actually export the certificate so that we can take a look at it a little later. I'm going to take this certificate and I'm going to save it to my desktop. Hit save. And then I'm going to exit out this and minimize that. And here's the certificate. So now we can double click on that certificate and voila, here's the details that we were looking at. Shows how long the certificate is valid for. Let me go back. And you can see all the fields and detail here. And then we can even look at the certification path. Now, I know a lot of that doesn't mean a lot to you all, but just know that the certificate, basically what it does is the server will present your computer with their certificate, and your computer will look at the certificate and go, think of it as credentials for access. It'll say, okay, everything's in line. This is a secure website. Um, I'm going to allow communication between me and you, being the computer and the server. Um, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea of it that I can give for the level of this class. Um, I'm gonna exit that out. So now that we looked at the certificate, we looked at encryption, we talked a little bit about hypertext secure. I'm gonna come back to this for just a second. So a lot of times now with web address bars, which is what this is, it automatically hides that HTTPS or HTTP. Um, but if I click on it, I can clearly see it's right here. So there are forms where there are no encryption, and this is where we get hypertext transfer protocol just by itself. Um, you don't really see that nowadays so much. You can see it in maybe internal websites, things that are internal to your organization if you're connecting within your internetwork. Um, but you don't really see that on web pages nowadays. Pretty much everything is HTTPS. Um, in fact, let me see if I can just try to get it to do that for a second. HTTP. I'm just going to put in CGTC. Nope. I was thinking maybe I can make it do it. Let's try cgtc.edu. Maybe that'll work. So if you notice, one of the first things that pops up is it says not secure. Now it's not really a real domain, but as you can see, it's saying your connection to the site is not secure. Um, we can go to the site settings. There's nothing there. And that's because this is not a secure, it's not a web page, but it's not a secure website either. So, and if you notice, it pops up that warning. So that's the difference whenever you are on a secure site versus a non-secure site. This lock doesn't appear and you don't get these options as you do up here. Um, let's take a look at the page, head, and body. So you're sitting here and you're looking at this web page and it just looks like a web page, right? Again, as I said, there's a lot going on in the background that you don't see. So we're going to go over here to these three dots and we're going to click on more tools and we're going to click on developer tools. So what did I just do? I just saw you're probably looking at yourself and going, what is all of this? Well, this is all the JavaScript, and there are other scripts, but a lot of this is Java um, scripting that's going on to make this page available to what you're seeing. Now, one of the things I want you to pick up on is you see head right here. And if we click on the head, we can see that there's information that's derived there in the head of the page. We see Central Georgia Technical College. We see some other places it's pulling information from. Um, and then we can go down. Let's go back up. And let's minimize this. And we can just see the body here. This is the body of the page. And again, you see a bunch of scripting going on there. So there's a lot more going on um, than a lot of people notice when it comes to a web page. In fact, there are other tools here. We could take a look at the console. Now, what's the console good for? The console can tell us if there's any errors. Now, those errors being what? Well, whether there's an error on the server side. Let's say I can load a web page. This could tell me whether the problem is with my program or with my computer or with the web server itself if I start looking through these errors. Um, and if you notice, there are some errors here. Now, one that you see is third party cookies are blocked. There's a lot of cookies that my web browser is blocking. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons why is because, of course, we have accepted only minimum cookies um, for web pages, so it's blocking a lot of third-party cookies that are trying to get on our page. But you can see there's a bunch of different errors on here. There's more tools. You can take a look at the network itself and see the information that's passing between your computer and the web server. But I'm not going to dig too deep in this rabbit hole. Um, what's the purpose of these tools? Again, one is, like I said earlier, you can look and identify errors. But another way, and for those that are majoring in cybersecurity, you're going to love this, is that I can take a look at the elements on this page and I can see if there's anything that's miss any errors made in the JavaScripts or anything that looks like something that I could a vulnerability that I could exploit to gain access into the web server. Now I'm not going to do that. I don't think Central Georgia would be happy about me trying to get into their web server, but that is a legitimate reason. Because of let's say I was hired to do a penetration test of the Central Georgia network, and I decided I'm going to start on the outside with the web page to see if I can get from from outside the web page into the web server, and then I can try to go from the web server into the internal network. So that's a legitimate use of what you'll find. Companies will hire penetration testers to literally try to get into their network. Um, to identify those vulnerabilities within their system. So, and if you're taking ethical hacking or digital forensics, you'll use some of the tools and you'll actually do some testing. In fact, there's some VMs, you like that, don't you? That are dedicated with vulnerabilities that you can actually work on exploiting if you're doing cybersecurity or penetration testing. So they have known vulnerabilities, and that includes some web servers. And your task is to um, get into that web server based on the vulnerabilities that are there. So there's several ways, but I'm getting a little off topic. That's it for this lesson. I have nothing else. Um, what I am going to do is I'm going to show you one more tool while I'm here. Let me type in CMD. And this is a command line tool that's commonly used. And I'm going to type up the command ns look up, right? Put a space, and I'm going to type in centralgatech.edu. And I'm going to hit enter. Now, if you notice, there's some information that popped up here. So, my question to you is what did I just do? What information is this, and how can it be useful to you as an IT professional? What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a discussion on the classroom. Um, I'm sorry, y'all. I've been at work all day, so I'm having a little trouble here on the classroom discussion board, and we're going to address what this is and maybe talk some more about web pages, talk about VMs, things of that nature. So you let me know what this is and how it can be helpful, as I stated earlier, and what information this is. And I hope you all enjoyed this lesson. I know it's longer, but I hope it was insightful as well. So this is Instructor Williams signing off. Have a good day.